stories and ideas shared on Generations in Conversation are based on our personal experiences, research, and honest curiosity. We are not licensed therapists, medical professionals, or trained theologians. The conversations on this podcast are not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you need mental health, medical, or spiritual guidance, please seek support from qualified professionals. We aim to share, learn, and grow together, but always encourage you to take care of yourself and consult trusted experts when needed.
And welcome back to Generations in Conversation. Let me start with a scene that may feel uncomfortably familiar. You hear a brilliant podcast like Generations in Conversation. You underline 3 lines in a book, Atomic Habits. You save a reel that was like, and last night I saved a reel, actually, that, we'll talk about that. You send a quote to a friend. You tell yourself, that is exactly what I needed. Then 3 days later, your habits are the same. Same old, as we say. Your reactions are the same. Somebody triggers you and you go off the rails, right? Somebody comes and says, oh, you think you're this, but look at you. Or you spiral down very quickly to this self-flagellation and this endless rumination. Your relationships are the same. Your peace is not deeper. In fact, it's sometimes shallower. Your life does not feel more steady, but your journal, your note app is impressive.
Sounds like we're being informed, but not altered.
Exactly. Welcome to the club. And today we want to sit with that without becoming cynical, judgmental, or moralistic. This really is not an attack on learning. No, we learn. That's why we're here. You touch that stove, it's hot. You learn that touching a hot stove is not good. And I remember somebody wanted to eat pepper, this bullet, when they were a child. Said, no. Please don't go there. What happened? I turned away. Somebody popped it into his mouth. And the wailing, right? But that someone learned, right? I have examples that I remember and I laugh, right?
Actually, I remember that one in the White House.
Yes, in the White House. Yeah, we love learning, and learning is good.
Indeed.
And this podcast would not exist without curiosity.
Absolutely. There's a difference between, learning that the stove is hot and that the chili bites back. You're not only biting it, and having something rearrange you.
Something rearrange you. So life can rearrange you, right?
That's actually, like we mentioned in the other, can't remember which episode, we are here fighting entropy. Actually, life is constantly attempting to rearrange you.
Absolutely. And that difference is where a lot of us get stuck between learning and actually even accepting reality that I'm being rearranged. How do I rearrange my internal self to actually accommodate this rearrangement?
And today's episode is all about that. And it's called Knowing Isn't the Upgrade. We're going to be talking about Solomon's Paradox and the Insight Trap.
This is for people like us who read, who listen, who think deeply, who reflect, and still sometimes wonder, why am I not moving?
Or even worse, people like me who say and wonder, why am I so good at helping others and so inconsistent with myself?
That's the question that we're asking. That question in of itself is the doorway. You can be over-informed and underformed.
All right, so let's name the psychological frame clearly. The Solomon's paradox is the idea that people often reason more wisely, more consistently, generally better when it comes to other people's problems than their own. You know, having that bird's eye view versus being stuck in the trench.
You're there floating,
Hmm.
and you're not. Yeah, it doesn't move you because you're not living it, right?
You're not overly attached. Yeah.
Yeah. Which means I may give you excellent advice about your relationship. Tari, now you're married, or I may tell you about your work stress. And you and I have talked about that a lot. We've talked about boundaries. We've talked about anxiety. And then sometimes I've gone home and I've done something far less wise in my own life. Or I've gone to that office where my anxiety levels have skyrocketed.
Yeah. And I have this as well, where it's easy to be brilliant from the balcony, up there looking down. But when you're on the ground floor, when you're on the field, when you're in the battlefield, it's a very different story.
That's a good image. From the balcony, you can see the whole room, or you can stand and see the horizon. You can stand and see the skyline, right?
Mm.
From inside the argument, you can barely see the next sentence. From that inside of you can barely see what is happening right underneath your nose.
Another way to frame this is, it's easier to coach from the touchline than to make a pass when the ball's right at your feet. Or if you're someone like me who's always watching racing, sports, F1, you can see a pass, you can see an overtake, or you can see a strategy decision that should be made. And so, come on, guys, this is so easy. You just need to make this choice.
Yes.
Yet if you put me in that car, it would probably end in millions of dollars worth of damage.
Absolutely. And that matters because many thoughtful people make the mistake, or we mistake wise language for wise living, right?
Yeah, and this is why you can leave a comment under somebody's post and have absolute clarity, and spend many weeks avoiding a difficult conversation or a phone call that you need to have and need to make.
Or you can help a friend identify a toxic pattern. Then you keep negotiating with your own toxic patterns and entertaining them somehow.
And again, we're not here to shame or to put ourselves down. So the point is not that we're all hypocrites in this super dramatic fashion. The point here is that we need to start realizing and understanding that self-involvement narrows your perception. It's like wearing the horse race blinders.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that you don't see anything else. Oh, look. I don't care what is happening. This is then navel gazing sets in. Yeah. And we are all prone to that, right? When it is my pain, my ego, my fear, my history, my appetite, my reputation, the picture gets very, very crowded very quickly.
Yeah, and wisdom for others is often very clean, very straightforward. Talking about this before we started the episode. But then when it comes to myself, it's sticky, it's difficult, it's tricky, it's real.
It's real. And once you see that, you can stop turning your inconsistency into a character indict, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you see, because listen, we also indict ourselves, right? We've talked about this self-flagellation. And that also sometimes offers some kind of relief where you feel, okay, now I've beaten myself, right?
Given
So
the guilty
now,
judgment, justice has
yeah, I
been
have
served.
self-cleansed through beating myself. That really doesn't work. Yeah. So now let's widen the frame a little bit, right? We do not only consume food, right? We do not only consume clothes, gadgets. Oh, yeah, I love gadgets. And as I was telling you, I almost fell into that trap because I thought, well, I needed these new earphones that are sporty, that can help, waterproof, noise canceling, all these things, and they don't fall off my ears. And I could imagine myself working out a certain way. We consume
It'll
entertainment.
supercharge your workout.
Yeah, right. Actually, there's an advertisement that said that this will give the energy you need for. And I laughed. We also consume insight, not only the material thing, right? We do.
Indeed. I mean, we're here on the podcast talking, and I hope you are listening and continue to listen. But that's one of them. Book summaries. I mean, there's whole apps now that help you read entire books in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Twitter threads, sermons, seminars, conferences, YouTube explainers. You know that YouTube University is a staple for many of us. Productivity systems and these quick help steps, therapy, language, leadership language, healing language, all these different insights and paths to improvement that we consume.
And none of those things are bad in themselves, really, right? We're not here to say insight is bad, no, but we're here to say insight is not enough, right? And sometimes it can turn against you because, again, yeah, you feel like, well, now that I know, everything is okay. Of course, the issue is what they become to us, in us, and for us.
And whether that even actually ends up becoming in the first place. It's like going shopping. You leave with a bag of stuff, but it doesn't necessarily change or improve your life. You just kind of have more stuff in this instance.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, you can build your whole identity around being the kind of person who gets it, who understands it. The person who knows the language of boundaries, trauma, attachment, purpose, the dopamine system, nervous system, faith, alignment, discipline, and yet be, quite shallow.
But language can become camouflage, right?
It hides us. Yes, you can speak on transformation fluently, like we do in this podcast, and have it not affect our lives in any way because just don't practice it.
This is one reason modern life feels so strange. We now have an endless supermarket of wisdom. I'd say malls of wisdom. We have not only a Sarit center. We don't only have what do you call this? All the malls in Nairobi or even here, where in Abidjan, Prima, in Kapsu, and oh my God, we have an endless supermarket of wisdom. The shelves are always stocked. The aisles never close. The algorithm keeps saying people who liked this insight also liked these 7 other breakthroughs.
Actually, the vision that came to mind is in the Matrix when they're going to fight, and they enter that hallway, and all the guns are just flying past them, infinite amount of weapons. That's what is in my head. You know what our brain says to this? Fantastic, lovely, beautiful. I want them all. Let's take all of them. Check out. Add them to cart. Let's check them out.
We collect frameworks the same way some of us collect shoes. We admire them. We arrange them. We recommend them and rarely walk in them.
That is an episode in one sentence. That is a fantastic summarization.
Let's also be gentle here, right? People, or we all actually, not reach for insight for real reasons: pain, confusion, loneliness, ambition, boredom, shame, even hope itself. We are trying to orient ourselves.
So the problem isn't that we're seeking wisdom. It's that the wisdom can become just another thing that we peruse through, flick through, scroll through, browse through.
Yeah. And browsing or scrolling can feel close enough to building that 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 we stop before the actual work begins. You think, oh yeah, I've already built this in my head. I have it's all here, right? And look, I am very guilty of that. I've built many houses, right? I've built whatever it is, and the evidence of that cannot be seen.
Reminds me of, what we were talking about last week, where I watch all these car videos and things, and yet I have two vehicles that are just sitting, waiting to be revived. In fact, now that I think about it, it might be three. Hey.
Oh wow.
No,
Yeah.
and it does feel like progress. It feels like so satisfying. Even when nothing changed or nothing has moved, you feel like you've done something. Why is that?
Partly because insight is rewarding. This is a psychological phenomenon.
Mm.
When something clicks, what do you feel? Relief.
Ooh.
When
Mm.
you go to a doctor and you are feeling unwell, right? And you didn't know what was wrong, but that kept you up at night because you're also anxious because you don't know what is wrong with you, right? And they run some tests and they come back with the test. They say, oh, you have malaria. You're like, oh, okay. Now, there's a relief in knowing what you have. There's a relief in naming something, right? There's a relief that comes with thinking that we understand what the phenomenon, what the issue is, right? This is psychological, right? But without taking those malaria pills, you still will die.
Mm.
Yes, the fog lifts. A pattern makes sense. A sentence finds you at the right moment. But again, it's just release.
So it's the age old. Our brain is here to keep us alive, not to make us live. It loves that click. It loves that
Absolutely.
snapping together.
That sense of clarity feels like something is actually happening or has happened. Movement. Even when it is only orientation, even when it is only an illumination of the path.
That's a very important distinction. So the orientation is valuable. It's actually necessary, but it is not a rival. Heck, it's not even moving on the path. One of the great sayings was, yeah, you can be on the right path or you can know on the right path, but if you're not moving, you're gonna be run over.
I like that. A map is useful. GPS is useful. But nobody or confuses owning a GPS with having taken the journey.
Mm.
A ticket to Mexico is useful, right? Absolutely, you need it. But if you don't hop onto that plane to go to that wedding that you're planning to go to,
Yeah,
you've
what's
even
the
paid
point?
for it, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And we often do pay for all of this insight that we are gaining in our time, in our attention. Yeah, and unless, it is a modern mind, which it does try and do that. It tries to get us there without going. It wants to claim it.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. And you mentioned something just a few moments ago where, yeah, we pay for all these things, right? For the insights, you pay for subscriptions, you pay for your internet connection to even get this material. You pay with your attention. what do we say? Pay attention. We pay, right? Now, what if we start questioning ourselves is, am I getting what I've paid for?
Ooh. Ooh. Mm.
You know, and I was thinking, really, truly, one of the interesting thing about this life is the tuition we pay for learning is mistakes. Mistakes are the tuition we pay for learning. Now, if I've paid that tuition and I don't learn, if I've gone and paid for this, university, Harvard of life, and I don't learn from it, right? Okay, so we have to constantly, not have to, but it is useful, I think, to constantly question: am I really getting what I'm paying for?
Dude, am I making it worth a while?
Absolutely.
Whew. And there's also this, like we were saying, self-involvement, which brings ego into the picture. And that insight tries to protect our identity. And this is an issue I think even I see with locally, where if I'm eloquent, looking at many of our politicians, in fact, if I can talk the talk and walk the walk, if I can describe this problem intelligently, not give a solution or even start working towards the solution, just defining the problem and describing the problem intelligently, then I start to feel like, oh, I'm above it. I've already solved it. In fact, there's no need for me to solve this. I've already overcome.
And yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know the kind of folk who are attracted to politics, because my goodness, they can describe something to you, and you actually almost smell it, feel it, taste it. But 3 days later, a year later, 5 years later, right? This is really an uncomfortable truth, but true.
Yeah, I mean, I can say I know that I struggle with avoidance or discipline and feel very mature for having named it, but still avoiding the thing. And as we get into the Solomon paradox, there's that the self-awareness trap where you're so self-aware that you actually don't even take any steps to change this. You've mastered yourself in a way where the master has difficulty doing new things, taking a new approach.
Because you know yourself, you're self-aware, and that becomes enough. And
It's self-excusing.
Oh, wow, right? And let's say in the last 20 years or so, being vulnerable and saying, well, but I'm this, was and is extolled. Oh, this guy is very open. This person is they're real. But being real and continuing self-harm because you're not doing the things that you ought to do to better your life. Being real, but you're still hurting other people, right? And we see this, even when we elect political types. He's a straight or she's a straight talker, right? But these people we call straight talkers or whatever, they then proceed to harm humanity irrevocably. And we see in our case, people steal public funds. People channel resources to places, and destroy lives. Yet we extol, they know themselves. I know myself. So naming becomes a substitute for action, for moving.
And that's where we kind of link back to the episode that we had a couple of weeks ago, where we talked about consumption that soothes without satisfying. An insight can do exactly the same thing. For some time, not ultimately, it can soothe a little bit of that anxiety of not knowing, without creating any of the depth or the practices that knowing then translates into when you actualize. Actually, one of the roughest performance reviews I ever had early on was actually exactly this, that I knew a lot. I had a lot of good ideas and a lot of insights, but my depth was leaving much to be desired. And I had to, ooh, that one hurt. That one I had to sit with and say, okay, what is it that made me feel okay with, being a jack of many trades and a master of none? What did I believe I was getting towards that clearly wasn't true, and having to adjust from that point.
Wow. Now, when you get feedback like that, and I've gotten feedback like that, before I defended my PhD, I sat on it and was done. But I could not bring myself to say a good PhD is a done PhD. I was into this insight, a perfectionism trap. I recall we went to one party and one of a professor, good friend of mine, came unglued and went after me. It really rattled me because he said, "You sit here, you talk the big talk, right? Yes, you claim even that you have done this work. There's no evidence. I'm sorry. I cannot listen to you anymore when you keep just talking about this thing. I cannot. We can talk about other things, but please don't even talk about this." Man.
Sheesh. Yeah. That's a good friend, though.
Right?
That is a good friend.
Yes, again, we may describe the aroma of the food. We might even smell it. Oh, that smells good, right? Useful, right? Inviting, sometimes beautiful. But you cannot live on aroma alone. You have to make that move. Go get that food. Eat that food so that it can nourish and fuel you to live and to do.
Or an analogy that many of us are guilty of, me included, the gym, watching videos of, excellent form, great reps, a whole set, and saying, yeah, this is the stuff. This is exactly what'll get me the fitness that I want, the body that I want, the endurance that I want. And then putting that phone back in your pocket and continuing to sit on the couch, lay in bed, say, tomorrow we'll go on and hit this.
Man, when you talk about the gym, I'm an old guy, yeah? And my brain again, our brains. Yesterday, Saturday, is my like resistance training day. Saturday, well, I do it 3 times a week, but Saturday is one of those days. And I had an early meeting. I did the meeting. I had my coffee, and then actually I did watch one YouTube clip on the right form for doing sit-ups using cable machines. I did. Okay. But all along, my brain is telling me, you are an old guy. Today, you should rest. Your tendons are not as young as they used to be. Maybe you need more recovery time. You need all these things. My brain is just there telling me all kinds of things. And I sat even differently. I moved to the couch from where I was sitting, even sipped and smelled my coffee even more deeply. Oh my goodness. So I said to my brain, because I have these now epic debates with my brain, and sometimes actually I have fights with my brain. Epic. Oh my goodness. I say, look, I know you want to protect me. I know you want to conserve all the energy. But listen, I'm not living in the caveman days. I'm not living in the savannah, walking up and down, with all these risks. Why are you telling me that I cannot do this and I'm too old and my tendons, whatever? I have done this for the past few years. I'm fine. And you're still trying to tell me things that are not true. I said, listen. Yes. I have to live with you. I know this. You are part of me. There's nothing. I cannot divorce you. I cannot cast you out. Yes, but please understand this. I am going to the gym now. Do what you want to do.
Yeah, make the
So
leg stop working then if you want to protect us that badly.
exactly. So anyway, I rose up, went, and that felt great afterwards. I say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, look at this, right? Yeah. So your gym analogy is very interesting. Yeah. Modern life gives us endless access to mental stimulation. We can we can be full of concept, but short on contact. The rubber does not hit the road.
Dude, that is a line worth keeping for sure.
But please do. Anyway, so let's bring this home, right? Because I mean, we have to be careful sometimes. This thing we talk, and let me also be honest that these our conversations have in many ways helped transform my life. I would say that because again, as we said, insight is important, right? It's a first step, and we are not against insight. So, in our context, advice is everywhere, right? In
Indeed.
our Kenyan context, actually, we know this when you go to someone a bit older than you or whatever, everybody is not short on an advice. Go ahead.
Let me tell you, getting married in the last year, I've heard advice up, down, left side, underneath the mount, everywhere from all angles. Family advice, spiritual advice, business advice, men's conference advice, motivation, side hustle, online clips on, if you're not doing these three things, you can't call yourself XYZ. Your identity has to be XYZ. Elders' wisdom, imported wisdom from, societies and systems that don't necessarily apply to us. Not saying that they're wrong. That local street game, street knowledge, how it's working on the street. There's all this advice and insight from so many sources that we are beholden to. Some solicited and others unsolicited.
Mostly unsolicited. This is what I find.
Hmm.
And again, some of that is genuinely, but one thing I've noticed across Kenya and growing up in Kenya, and honestly beyond Kenya, I've lived in several countries, right? Especially on this continent, is that there is some kind of social pressure to sound clear before you are clear. There is a lot of value, as we said earlier, placed on eloquence and actually also reward.
Definitely. When you sound like you've healed, that you've, gone through and licked your wounds and suffered through the pain of scars forming, but you're not even there yet. You haven't even started.
To sound disciplined before you're disciplined. And there's something that, and I don't know how I arrived at this. When I quit drinking, and I was drinking, I enjoyed my spirits. They they inhabited me a certain way, but also caused untold damage, in many aspects. But when I decided maybe this was not for me, I don't have the capacity to handle it a certain way. It's harming me. It's harming my relationship with my kids. With the most important thing in my life, actually, by the way, the relationship with my kids. It's harming my cognitive abilities. I couldn't think clearly at one time. And then the sluggishness and things like that. But that one morning when a Saturday morning, I'd been drinking the previous day, previous night, almost the whole night. I had downed a bottle and a half of whiskey, So, and when you think, oh, 18-year-old whiskey, this is aged, whatever. Man, it's ethanol, right? Forget it is ethanol. Forget it. It's still that poison. However aged it is. I mean, I'm not knocking people who enjoy a good whiskey. No. Yeah. That one morning I had, usually on a Saturday, not during weekdays when I was working, but on a Saturday I'd leave a little bit for the morning. We call it in Kenya
The hair of
to
the
remove.
dog.
Yes, and to remove the airlock, right?
Yeah, door lock.
The door lock, right? And I had it by my bedside, and I lifted that glass close to my mouth, and I smelled it, and I put it down for some reason. All along, of course, I'd been thinking, not 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but maybe months and years, that this is not for me. Anyway, the day, then I say, okay, finally I say, no, this is not for me. I put it down. But I never told anybody that I had stopped drinking. And I never told myself I had stopped drinking. What I told myself, let me see what happens today if I don't drink. And I never ruled out the possibility of going back to drinking and said, oh, I have decided to follow Jesus, now turning back. I don't know where I got that from, but actually that has worked for me. When I started working out, it's much later I started posting my photos, me working out, but after the habits were entrenched somehow. I don't know where I got that from. I don't say that somebody taught me that. Now is when I'm realizing how helpful those kinds of things can be, or that kind of approach can be. Sometimes, of course, it's good to have accountability partners or friends. You know, who say, "Oh man, yeah, let's go,
Come on.
let's
Come
let's do
on.
it, man. You can do it."
Yeah,
Not people who lecture you. I don't like lectures, huh? I know. I rebel when somebody tries to moralize. No, I rebel. So I go the other way. Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, it's the similar thing, and actually the scripture talks about that with fasting. And I've experienced that, where I wanted to start fasting and working up towards a longer water fast, 7 days, 21 days. And in the scripture it says, if you go and shout and announce that you're doing all these wonderful things, you know what the reward for that will be? The fact that people know and will say good job. All the other things that are meant to come from fasting, which is, your spiritual growth, even your physiological kind of refreshment, all of that will be gone by the wayside. Why? Because you won't finish. You won't continue to do it because you've already given it away. It's no longer yours.
Yeah.
You've given it away, and sounding. We do that even with our wisdom. We like to sound wise before we've paid for it. And one of our episodes we said, don't waste your suffering. And that's the thing. Sometimes we don't even get to suffer, but we like to speak from that perspective.
Amazing. The pressure to sound wise before you have paid for the wisdom, right? You said that pressure can be subtle. It can come from church. It can come from professional culture. It can come from social media culture. Even our family systems. In fact, a lot of who we are, at least the building blocks in the family. And it's not to say, it's not to knock on no, families are essential. But it's to say that, yes, families are essential for our own survival, but also families can install software in us that actually does not bode very well for us in life. We're not balanced. We're not able to navigate difficulty, uncertainty, because there's that life is full of uncertainties. And you talked of entropy. Entropy you cannot measure, you cannot predict, you cannot. It is entropy, right? And again, yeah. So there's a lot of pressure then to sound like I know.
Exactly. And we end up performing that vocabulary or that posture, that walk and swagger, instead of practicing the truth.
Performing vocabulary. And yeah, in high pressure environments, people cling to insight, or we tend to cling to insight language because it gives you a sense of control. It's like when we said, when you've been told you have malaria. I mean, it's a moment of anxiety when you cannot sleep, you have high temperature, your every part of your body aches, even your hair. Malaria is terrible, right? Right? Then you're told, oh, it's malaria. You say, oh, okay. There's relief that comes with that.
Yeah, I think even in our work, I think we both work in quite high pressure environments, and that insight brings you closer to certainty, a false certainty, which helps, calm you down and say, okay, yeah, we got this. We know what we're doing. But it's life is messy, and it feels messy because it is messy. And saying the right thing can feel like you are putting the pieces to this puzzle, cosmic puzzle together, and that you have a sense of control. I'm holding this, I'm steering this, and driving it towards my own ends.
Beautifully put.
But yes, furniture arrangements, as you were arranging your furniture, trying to not go to the gym, is not a renovation. It doesn't materially change the structure, the layout, the quality of what's in there.
There we go.
Yeah. And I think my generation and younger feel this so strongly. I mean, growing up and immediately being connected to the world, being connected to what's going on in Japan and US and Australia and Europe, the pressure to be self-aware, emotionally literate, entrepreneurial, spiritually grounded, ready for the future, mentally resilient, just prepared for life, everything that life can throw at you all at once is just a lot. It's difficult.
Yeah, which can create a new kind of exhaustion as well. In this supermarket, really, you have so many choices, and they can be paralyzing. You can just, have you ever felt tired from you went to a mall and and you come home tired? What is making you tired? You're not only trying to live, right? You are trying to narrate your life as if it is already coherent because you have the language, because you have the insights,
And
because
that can
yes, yeah. Go ahead.
and that's really dangerous, honestly, because where you're putting yourself, and I think we're both very guilty of this, is when your narration doesn't match the reality, you feel like a fraud.
And that is painful. Who wants to be a fraud? In social signaling, if you are a fraud, you can be ostracized. Again, we don't have any shortage of language to describe ourselves a certain way, even when we are not that way, right? And we'll come back to this at one point. Sorry, I jump around everywhere. There's something that is so interesting now, an interesting phenomenon. Again, we have tools in our hands that, AI, for example. And nowadays you can go to any of and you can ask it to do something for you, right? And in a professional setting, and then you generate this beautiful document. But that document is full of this machine-like language, these tepid, empty, vapid words, and it frames and phrases things a certain way, and it averages everything to what everyone else is thinking and knows and things like this, and it loses originality, authenticity, and it is what we call now work slop.
Mm-hmm.
Now, AI work slop. Now, you take that piece of whatever, and you see a lot of writing now, heavy writing, blah, 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 blah. It's nothing. It's empty. It's vapid. It's, it's this averaging and this, you have the, and you give it to somebody and they look at it and say, oh, I know what you did.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates even more work.
Yeah.
Because now you've got to go, you needed to do something.
Detangle and remove the meaning from all of this.
Now, but also what you've been labeled indirectly is you're a fraud. Look at the work slop. You thought you could go and get away with it, to go and tell an AI to do this, LLM to do this for you. Now we know.
Do your job.
Do your job.
Yeah.
Right? And that sends a strong signal. So let's say something plainly.
Mm-hmm.
This show is not asking our participants to become more eloquent about growth. We are asking all of us to become more honest about practice.
That's a tough ask, but I think it is true that the true wisdom is not in how well you can narrate this lesson, but in how steadily you can live it. And in that, ask, how do we do this? How do we actually go from insight to embodiment?
Let's attempt to build a bridge from knowing to doing, right? It's not a dramatic bridge, but hopefully it's a practical, usable, not only useful, but usable, right? User friendly, if you please.
We say we're not a 10-step solution to all life's problems, but we will give you some steps. And the first one today is borrow your wisdom from the outside.
Explain that.
When you're stuck in your own problem, ask yourself, if this was, one of the homies or my colleague or my son or daughter, or even my parent, what would I say with love and clarity? We're here trying to move ourselves from the self-involvement, horse race blinders, and get a slightly better view. Let's go up into the balcony where we can see the whole room,
That move matters, right? It creates a little distance. Enough, as you said, enough space to see what really is going on without being attached to what is going on, or without actually identifying yourself with what is going on, without saying, that is me, that's always me. It's saying, who am I really? Why does that exist? We're coming to this conclusion after years and years and years of claiming that IQ is high, is a measure of intelligence. In fact, there's this notion now, and there's there are a lot of studies going on, and also meta analysis of information data that seems to be leading to this conclusion that your ability to study your thoughts, to look at your thoughts from a third person perspective, fourth person perspective, what they call interoception, is the highest form of intelligence, because then you do not attach identity to those thoughts, right? You don't attach identity to those patterns. You say those are just patterns, right? They exist, yes. Those are changeable. Those are malleable. What you say really, Gitari, is powerful.
Some of the best advice I got when we were early days working on our project, was from one of these incubator guys, and he said, "You are a witness." Specifically, this was talking about emotions, but you are a witness to your emotions. You are not your emotions. And I think what's coming out here is you can be a witness to your life, and that makes you wiser and better able to deal with it.
It's interesting. Yeah, I totally agree. So here's number 2: shrink the unit of change. We often fail at embodiment or change because we are trying to cash a massive check with no small note. We say, I need to change my whole life. I mean, remember our New Year's episode. This is actually what it talks about. You don't take on. You've not gone to the gym for years. You don't go to the gym that one day and try and bench 100 kilos or squat 100 kilos or do I don't know what. You will kill yourself. It'll be the end. You will not be able to walk the next day, and your gym will most likely come to a halt. Start smaller. It is not 80% of what you do that changes 80% of your life. 20% of consistency can irrevocably change your life. I'm a witness to that.
I mean, you, for some of us who've been in debt before, whether small or large, you rarely go and pay out all your debt in one fell swoop. In fact, you can drive yourself crazy trying to do that. But if you start with 1 shilling, one conversation, one boundary, an evening routine, just one thing, a walk, an uncomfortable conversation, a single hour of no algorithm giving you endless insights, and do that again and again and again. Watch, taste, and see.
Yes. Taste and see. Let me tell you, and you're never too old. I'm more than a half a century old, but I can assure you, I am seeing changes in my life I will tell you this. I, anyway, this is a conversation for another day. We'll have that conversation, because listen, I am a neurotic driven. You know what the things I did even in my young days. Running a catering business, running a recording business, going to school full time, working full time, whatever. And perfectionism. This. Even to do something small like wash dishes, I would see a spot that I missed, and I'm like, "What is wrong with you? You missed this spot on this dish." Oh my God. With small, incremental, consistent steps, I'm beginning to see the light, even at my age. I'm beginning to feel a bit lighter, that life is not this huge load that you carry and that you do. It's not a travail 24 hours. The bread I eat is not the bread of sorrow, but the bread of joy. Third, ask a harder question after every insight. And we talked about this just earlier. What is the behavioral invoice on this idea? What does this truth cost me by tonight, by this week, by this month?
That is a fantastic question. I think we did talk about making sure that thing that you paid for was worthwhile. And
Right.
and it's important, I think, yeah, to be realistic, like to make this progress, it will cost you something. There's no free lunch.
A truth that costs you nothing may still be true, right?
Mm.
But it has probably not reached your life yet.
All right. Fourth, reduce the distance between the lesson and the repetition. When you hear something that truly lands, do something with it in the first 24 hours. I would even say in the first 30 minutes, and then revisit it by the end of that day. Um, it is so easy, especially in this day and age when we are overwhelmed and overloaded. It can be a great idea. It can be something that really touched you and that you want to do. You have the energy and the ability to do and take that step. But letting it sit, there's going to be 100 other things between then and the end of the day that come in between, and it'll just go. It'll be gone forever. I cannot even tell you how many times I've gotten to the end of my day feeling like, "Ah, I've accomplished so much, man. I've done all these different things. And then I think, oh, I'm in bed already. Damn it, there was this one small thing. It would have taken me 10 minutes to do. I didn't do it. And I'm angry about that.
One thing.
And it's just one small thing, and that's the thing. You do what you can when you can. Don't
It,
you delay your
yeah,
gratification? Do not delay your efforts.
I like that. You can delay your gratification, but do not delay the effort. Wow, that is profound. It is indeed profound. And I can sit in the comfort of my apartment and write in my journal. I can have that clarity about how I can emotionally regulate myself and not be drawn into the work, complaining and anxiety and all those kinds of things. I can go for my rock, and this is an interesting moment because, man, when I'm carrying my 15, 20 kilos on the back and moving it, again, don't feel old. I'm old, but I still can do that. At let me say 8 minutes per kilometer for about 6, 7, 8 kilometers. I mean, I'm on top of the world. Now, when I'm done, I shower, have my breakfast, walk to work. The first thing that hits me is this email. Or somebody comes and says something, whatever the case might be. And all of a sudden, all those things that I practiced, my journaling, my meditation, my rocking to give me emotional stability and physical, whatever, it goes out of the window. Now, it doesn't mean that's the end of it. What is important is how quickly I recover from that.
Mm.
And that comes from what you said, the reps and the distance, between the lesson and the rep. That is important. If you catch yourself, you say, well, why really does this matter? And in 90 seconds, what was, of course, we know the fight, flight, or fawn chemicals in your body circulate within 90 seconds and it's gone. The rest is you ruminating on things and holding on to the trauma and thinking, oh my God, I almost died. You did die. Okay. Right?
The email that's actually a lion almost came and ate me.
Right. So if you recover from that and 90 seconds later you say, oh, no, I'm not going to go there. The distance between the trigger and your recovery is the most important. And if you continue to shorten that distance because you practice and you catch yourself, then you're going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, send the text, make the calendar change, delete the app. Now, you talked about social media last time. I'm not going to repeat that and how many 34 hours a week. And now I've turned on my stats. to see how. Oh yes. Thank you for the inspiration.
Hey,
Yeah.
it's a rough. That data is a bit dangerous.
Yes. I want to see it, and I'm going to make hopefully some changes. Right, and that apology that you needed to start that draft, the book, the session. Go to bed on time.
Please, sleep hygiene.
Yes.
Yeah, we should not let insight become decoration, adornment,
Mm.
fake jewels that we parade around ourselves.
Wow. Don't let insight become decoration. Fifth, stop asking only, did this inspire me? Ask, did this interrupt me? Did that inspiration, the insight I got this morning about not complaining, has it interrupted me when I start complaining?
That's strong.
Inspiration is pleasant, right? But interruption is where the change begins. If I can interrupt those thought patterns that cause me to spiral, ruminate, be anxious, that cause me to complain and feel like complaining has solved my problem, that even tempt me to gossip about other people.
Exactly.
If that inspiration insight interrupts that, that's where the change begins.
We need more conviction. It needs to rock you out of your seat or out of your cycle and loop. All right, and maybe let's do one more. A quick embodiment list. Not quotes, no highlights, just something, a running record you can use for truths that you are already practicing. You said that the fight, flight, or fawn leaves in 90 seconds. So what can I do in those 90 seconds?
Absolutely. 3 lines maybe. What am I practicing? Remember, practice makes permanent. Remember, you become what you practice. You become what you repeat. Where am I resisting? What are those points? What is one honest repetition for this week? One.
That is concise and clear. And I think this is something that I will be using to help turn wisdom into training.
Let's touch the deeper frame lightly, okay? For me, one reason this matters spiritually is that faith was never meant to be a shelf of admired ideas. Faith without action is dead.
Dead.
It was always meant to become a way of life, a way of walking.
That word, that walking, that matters a lot.
Yes, it does. Not posing, not collecting, not performing vocabulary, but walking.
That means,
go ahead.
Yeah. That, that repetition on the ordinary days, the returning, the staying, the building of character through trials and tribulations that then builds, character that then can build hope. I think that's something we've talked about before.
Absolutely. And, humility sits right in the middle of this episode. Humility is what lets us admit that being able to explain a truth is not the same as being shaped by that truth.
Humility says, I may be articulate, and still I am unfinished.
Beautiful. And there is freedom in that. You do not have to pretend the lesson has already become instinct.
You can just say, I see it now, and now I am going to live it.
That is maturity. That is movement.
And it's also
That is
what
change.
protects us. And it's what protects us from this strange modern temptation, the temptation to become connoisseurs of wisdom rather than its apprentice.
Say that again. Connoisseurs, did you say that again?
Connoisseurs of wisdom rather than its apprentice.
There is the title of somebody's book.
Yeah, maybe not ours.
We are not connoisseurs of wisdom. We are apprentices of it. Oh, wow. Yeah. No, not our book.
But yeah, it is true. It is true.
So maybe the deeper invitation here is much simpler than we think. Do not only ask whether a truth is beautiful. There's beauty in truth. No question about that. Ask whether, if you are willing to repeat it, for we become what we repeat. Here is the invitation for the week. Choose just one insight, not two, that you've been admiring from a distance. That beautiful truth, just one, not 5, not 12, just one. Then ask, what would it look like to practice this before I talk about it again?
And if you are so compelled to send us a voice note or an email or a DM about, an insight that you finally decided to live, tell us about how that's changed you, what that progress or journey's been like, or tell us where you've noticed Solomon's paradox in your own life.
Not as a confession theater, or you're going for those confessions that people go to. We're not against that. Just an honest piece of human data that we can use. Remember, we don't identify with all these things as if they really make you who you are. Look at them as data that informs you where you need to change, where you need to improve, where you need to repeat even more, where you need, all those kinds. Yeah, just treat it as data. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of a great saying that I had heard when one of the aunties was talking to us was about playing the movie to the end and taking this data, again, stepping back out of this self-personalized and say, okay, with these data points, if I play this movie to the end, where is it taking me? Where are we going? And it's not about catching you out. It's not about catching any of us out, but how do we close this gap between clarity and change?
Precisely because knowing is good. Indeed, it's a gift. Knowing illuminates the path, but knowing is not the upgrade.
No, walking on that path is.
And staying with it when the novelty fades, when that feeling of this is new, this is exciting fades, when the mood shifts, when your mind starts to tell you, yeah, you've tried enough, this is enough, who do you think you are? By the way, you'll never change. When nobody is clapping, that is where a life deepens.
And on our next episode, we'll attempt to take this one step further. What happens when identity starts defending your old habits? Why do I protect the labels that are already too small for me? And where does this take me next?
Thank you for being with us. This is Generations in Conversation. What stays? What changes? Hopeful stories for each season of life.